That's a pretty cool guide on how they might be part of the solution. You know, he had a teenage son that he helped coach in business that did, like, I think close to 7 figures of revenue as a teenager.
Incredible.
Money can be complicated. Let a nerd help you. We're here to demystify the complex nature of money by getting you answers from financial nerds and whiz kids. Welcome to Ask the Money Nerds, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we answer your most pressing money questions. Are you doing all you can to provide for your family and still falling financially short? Have you had some tough circumstances that have been hard to deal with and not sure about your next step? Where can you get some breathing room? Where can you access money or increase your cash flow? All right, this is a tough question today.
It is a tough question, and it comes from Marzinia.
Okay.
And so we're going to give you some insight into her situation before you dive in with advice.
Okay.
So here we go. She says, I'm a single 46-year-old mom of 4. My kids are a bit older, but still living with me. I'm trying to put my life on track the last couple of years after a bad marriage, and I'm now the sole provider of my household. I work full time, but I'm not making enough to pay a mortgage or rent, which is why my house is in foreclosure. I also had to file for bankruptcy. I need to make decisions within a year because that's how long I think I can still stay in the house before the bank is going to take it over. I have about $17,000 in a 401k plan, and I'm educating myself so I can switch jobs. I also have a side hustle that I do to stay afloat. One thing I know I need to work on is my credit score. I've listened to your podcast, and I'm getting some great advice. I still work at the job where the 401k is through, and my question is, should I try to take that money out and reallocate it somewhere to get a better return? After 12 months that I'll be able to get myself and my kids our own place? Am I even able to take the money out? What would you advise?
So
there's a lot here.
Yeah, with the 401k, when you're employed, it depends on the administrator and, you know, how it's set up and the language in the contract. Some, not many, you can still get to it and roll it out even when you're employed.
Okay.
Most, you can't.
You have to wait until you've transferred jobs.
You can typically borrow like 50% of it, but then there's a payback. And if you don't do that payment back, then there could be penalties, but it might be something to look in. There might not be those penalties because of COVID, because they've got this provision saying if you've been impacted by it, you can get up to $100,000 without the 10% penalty. So I think that the piece of getting educated in the right education, like you hear me talk about invest in yourself, if anyone's been watching this, and investing in yourself doesn't mean if you have a skill, getting marginal improvement in that skill. It means the skills that matter the most, which could be anything from communication through speaking skills or writing, right? It could be learning about money, like what we're doing here, or marketing. It could be learning basic fundamentals about business, or having a completely different conversation with an employer to figure out if I can contribute to the bottom line. Can I participate in that upside? Can I get a percentage of that so that it's not just trading time for money? A lot of people are trading time for money, and if it's not getting you ahead and you're in foreclosure, that's a really tough situation. So first recommendation I have is there's a book called Toes Turn Purple by Rich Christensen. And if you got older kids still living with you, that's a pretty cool guide on how they might be part of the solution. You know, he had a teenage son that he helped coach in business that did, like, I think close to 7 figures of revenue as a teenager.
Incredible.
Right? And all his kids are entrepreneurs now, and there's ways that they could actually pitch in. And that might be helpful. There's a side hustle as well. So I imagine full-time job, 4 kids, side hustle. It's got to be pretty exhausting. It's got to be hard to have breathing room at this point.
Yeah. I would be drained if I were in her situation.
Yeah.
I can relate.
So I feel that, and that 17,000, you know, I think you just got to find out from your employer what that provision is, and if there's any hardship provisions, or if you can get access to that. Where to invest it in the next 12 months that's going to yield anything worthwhile? There's only one place, and it's not for the full 17,000. It's simply, what are the pieces that are going to move the needle the most in adding more value in the world? Like, not just time for money, but everyone's got sole purpose. Everyone's got a vision that if they're really clear about, that they can then use their values, their abilities, and their passions to bring that forth in the world. But if we're so busy and exhausted, it's hard to find that, especially in survival, where you're like, okay, I got to make ends meet. I got to scramble. I got to do whatever it takes. And when I think of the toughest time in my life financially, it was in 2008. And I was doing a lot of things that I didn't really love to do, but I was doing it simply because I had a firm, and bankruptcy was not an option. I was going to get to the other side of it. And I was having to get up at 3:30 in the morning for a while just to actually have some time to think, have some space. And yeah, I was tired. That's where most of my gray hair came from during that time. I definitely put on some weight during that time, because it seemed like I worked out less and worked more. But I really feel like for me, what kept me going was I had a vision that I was excited about, that was compelling, that I knew that I could work towards, and I would deal with the minutia. I would deal with the details. There'd be times I'm like, okay, I got payroll. It's Friday. It's 4:00. I'm going to work until I figure this out. Right. And it's exhausting. It's really difficult. So the first step is just the fact that she's talking about it. She's saying, hey, I'm facing this. I'm struggling. The credit score isn't the biggest priority right now. I know we've got links that we can offer, and wealthfactory.com/credit has a free guide right there that would be great of helping that out. Really, it's what can you do to get your kids engaged, if that's at all possible, and
like then, are you meaning like starting a business together, or?
Yeah. Or like everybody chipping in. It could be a business. It could be, there's a number of things that people can do now. We've had people that were, single parents that ended up doing Airbnb with their spare rooms. And that might be tough when you got kids and, safety considerations, but that's what they did to get on their feet and create cash flow and just start seeing a positive instead of just like, going in the red all the time. Yeah. So I don't have enough information here. So I'm giving general strategy and general information, but let's see what other things I think would be really important. Is there a way to either downgrade the home or move into a different home where, you could partner with whoever the landlord is, where you could Airbnb if there was like a basement? I mean, it depends on where you live. Like, I think nobody in Phoenix has basements, but everybody in Utah does. So it kind of depends, is there a way to make that happen? Credit repair options, wealthfactory.com/credit, creditnerds.com is another resource. Let's see, on the side hustle, I don't know what it is, so I'd like to know more about that. Is there something the kids can help out with, like I said before? But the question is, in getting out of the trap requires completely different thinking that, scarcity is hard to see past. So for me, I think this deserves like a one-on-one conversation. So we'll reach out. I feel compelled just to see what we can do to help, because I think that it, like everybody gets a sense of what's going on here. Other people are facing this situation, and hopefully we could reach out, we can help her out, and then we can even illustrate the strategies based upon that recommendation.
Yeah. And I just want to encourage her too. Like, I think there's so much shame around money, and if we get in situations that feel tight, but Marzenia, I don't think there's any cause for you to feel shame or embarrassed. I think you're really engaging in a courageous conversation where you've taken the time to reach out and map out your situation. You're seeking, guidance. And I think that takes a lot of courage, because it's really easy to just keep some of these things private and feel like, suck it up, buttercup, or I'll pull myself up by my bootstraps and figure it out. But when we collectively share our concerns or our problems, we can then access everyone's collective knowledge and be able to move forward powerfully together rather than trying to do it in isolation.
Yeah, my grandpa chipped in some money during that tight time. My mom, my in-laws, paid for some of the things that my son needed to go to for social groups where he's struggling with some things. So it's like being willing to speak up, ask for help. Don't put on the strong face and say everything's great. Yeah. It's like, hey, because sometimes, I think of just this one time where my mom had lost both of her kidneys and was like living on dialysis just to be alive.
Right.
And I had cyst on my kidney, so I couldn't donate a kidney. So I just put a Facebook post like, hey, this is what's really going on. And 31 people reached out and said they would actually donate a kidney.
That's a pretty story.
Big, that's a pretty big give. And I wasn't asking for that. But I think sometimes the fact that she typed in Ask the Money Nerds, that's a step. We gotta be willing to ask for that support, be willing to receive that support.
Yes.
And I think that that's the biggest key.
So Marzenia, we'll reach out to you. We'll get some more context for your situation to guide you more specifically. So anything else to wrap up today?
What I would say is, look, we all got to help each other out here. If you're in a good situation, if you can pay it forward, if you can support someone, and just think in our own lives, like who supported us during difficult times, and what did that mean, so that we know that we're not alone, so that we're not exhausting ourselves trying to take on so much, and I just feel that we can help each other out. Like, there's people that are doing great right now. I spoke for one of our friends, and a lot of those businesses were doing really well during COVID because they're software businesses, right? So even if it feels like a dire situation, there's other people that are doing okay, and there's other people that are willing to chip in, but only if they know what's going on. So, don't keep it a secret, don't keep it quiet, and hopefully we'll be able to directly help.